Well, thank you, Alison. Wonderful to be here this Saturday morning. Let me just begin. The local election results show that Keir Starmer's Change Labour Party is ready for government, winning here in London, winning in the West Midlands, winning in Milton Keynes, winning in Cleveland, Bedfordshire, Somerset, Norfolk, North Yorkshire, right across the country. Conference. People across the country have had enough of this Conservative chaos. Conference, as Shadow Foreign Secretary, it's easy to look at the wider world as a source of Britain's problems. Putin's illegal war on our continent, driving the cost of living crisis at home, the war in Gaza. We all want it to end now, feeding extremists who want to divide us on our streets. The climate emergency, ending in the tragedy of desperate refugees drowning in dinghies on our shores. But in a world this polarised, this dangerous, we must never forget that it is the story we tell about ourselves and the choices that we make that will determine, for 14 long years now, our fate. The Conservatives have behaved like delinquent vandals taking the British state for a joyride. They threw rocks at our reputation for the rule of law when they threatened the Good Friday Agreement. We say never again. They spat on our climate leadership when they rode back on our commitments. We say never again. They stamped on our closest allies when they insulted our friends in Europe. We say never again. They chucked hundreds of millions of pounds out of the window in the hope of deporting the most vulnerable to Rwanda. What do we say, Conference? We say never again. And Conference, they set fire to Britain's reputation as a steward of the economy, with Liz Truss crashing it. And what do we say? We say never again, never again, never again. The next Labour government will tell a new story about Britain and make the right choices for our future at home and abroad. Our task is to deliver a decade of national renewal. But before I get there, I just want to take you back to Tottenham in the 1980s. When I was skinny, a skinny boy in National Health Service prescription glasses, I lived in fear of the National Front. One night, a skinhead threw a glass bottle at my family outside Camden Town tube station. When I heard the crash of glass on the pavement behind me, I turned around to see fascists draped in the Union Jack. They may have worn British colours, but they did not stand for our values, the British traditions of inclusion, of tolerance, of respect. But even back then, I knew these thugs didn't represent our country. It was not them who took the symbol of Britain to the top of the podium to win Olympic medals. It was black British athletes like Daley Thompson, Colin Jackson, and Tessa Sanderson. It was not them who helped to defeat the Nazis in World War II. It was our armed forces who made my parents from the great Windrush generation so proud to be British. As progressives, we understand that patriotism is not nationalism. Patriotism is not exclusion. Patriotism is inclusion. The Union Jack belongs to all of us, black or white, rich or poor, from Tottenham or Totnes. And that is why I'm proud that this year, Labour will go to the ballot box flying the Union Jack, not just on our leaflets, but in our heads and our hearts. My friends, as Shadow Foreign Secretary, I've been on more than 40 foreign visits representing Labour's patriotic vision of our country. This has been one of the great privileges of my life, meeting world leaders, foreign ministers, and members of the public in Delhi and Doha, Brussels and Brasilia. One message has rung out louder than any other. Our allies and partners all want to see Britain back on the world stage. And that is what Labour's approach to foreign policy is all about. We will create a Britain reconnected for our security and our prosperity at home. And we will do it with a philosophy that I call progressive realism. Taking the world as it is, not as we would wish it to be. And let me tell you, when the next Labour government can go to Brussels with our proposals for a new UK-EU security pact, Britain will be back on the world stage. When the next Labour government stands up with like-minded countries dedicated to net zero in a new clean power alliance, Britain will be back. When the next Labour government works with international partners to recognise a state of Palestine, Britain will be back. And when we can play our part in holding Vladimir Putin to account for his war crimes in a special tribunal, Britain will be back. In the absence of a government that has any approach to Africa, we will create a new Africa strategy and Britain will be back. We will complete an audit of China to end 14 years of inconsistency and Britain will be back. And we will finally restore our leadership role on international development and Britain will be back. Conference, there are these rare moments in history when we as progressives have the chance to get Britain its future back. The times we have seized it are burnt into our retinas. In 1997, when Tony Blair's Labour Party sent the Conservatives into electoral oblivion for more than a decade, transforming the lives of working people with the minimum wage at home, lifting millions out of poverty abroad. In 1964, Harold Wilson led the charge for the future, not just in Britain, but across the world, ending the death penalty, legalising same-sex relationships, and giving women the right to choose. And in 1945, Clem Attlee's Labour government delivered the National Health Service to look after Britain's sick, while delivering NATO and the nuclear deterrent to help keep our whole continent safe. These are the moments that inspire us. But it's just as important we remember the opportunities we missed. The 2015 election that led to the chaos with David Cameron. The 1992 election defeat that delayed our transformation of Britain for 5 long years. The 1951 election that would have allowed Attlee to complete his task. You can never take elections for granted because you can never take voters for granted. The election this year is still one that we can lose. Around the world, voters' loyalty with political parties is weaker than at any time in history. And in the election, dark forces from hostile states like Russia and Iran may seek to interfere. The polls do not predict. Ahead of the 2019 election in Australia, the Australian Labor Party led in every poll for 2 years before the election, but they lost. In Germany in 2021, the CDU were leading in almost every poll in the 3 years before the election. But thanks to our brilliant campaign by our sister party and our friends in the SPD, they lost. And we all remember the 2016 US election, where Democrats, despite a steady poll lead for Hillary Clinton and the Democrats, and still winning the popular vote in the United States, Hillary lost. It's our duty this election year, in this generation, in this movement, in this moment, never to be complacent, never to take a single vote for granted, never to measure the curtains before the sale is complete. Colleagues, my plea to you, when you wake up every morning in this campaign, is to realise that every door you knock on, every leaflet you deliver, every conversation you have about Keir Starmer's missions for Britain, in your families, in the pub, online, is vital. It's a vital act of change, of hope that's necessary for us to win so that we can get Britain its future back. Reconnect with our allies. Stand up for the rule of law. Work for peace. Deliver security and growth at home and on the world stage. Thank you so very, very much. Thank you.